And hello, and welcome to another episode of the Quota Podcast. This is your cricketing podcast, your South African cricketing podcast. It gives you everything about the beautiful, soccer is a beautiful game, but cricket's also a beautiful game in South Africa. The Proteas are in the UK. They've been taking all their media test white photos for Sky, so we're excited. We're seeing that on Twitter. That is exciting. But the Momentum Proteas got knocked out of the Commonwealth Games. It's been a long 3 months for them in England, and at least obviously now they're back home, rest and recuperate. I hope they know that the performances weren't a reflection of their ability. There were some people we thought we liked, and we loved some combinations there. I think Annika Bosch batted well. Lara Goodall batted well throughout that tournament, even though it waned and went. Our bowling is a serious concern, especially with those injuries. But we hope that they rest, recuperate, and know that they are better than this. And that's what I'm hoping for. But I've got my co-host here, Tim. We're going to talk all things about the T20 series. But let me ask Tim, how are you doing? And how are things going? I see that the 100's back. Are you still watching?
Hey, what's that? Am I still watching what?
I
don't watch the 100. I don't watch the 100 on principle. I refuse to watch it. Just on principle. But otherwise, all good, dude. All good.
All good.
I'm actually a little bit sad the Commonwealth Games has ended. I enjoyed all of it, not just the cricket. I enjoyed it all.
What sport did you enjoy the most?
Probably the swimming. Swimming, because it was such a high standard. But I enjoyed all of it. I mean, I enjoyed the bowls.
We won a medal in bowl. I was like, wow, okay, South Africa, we can do this. I loved watching last night Arshad Nadeem from Pakistan. He looks like he comes from Punjab, like he's like the great Khali's like second cousin. Very big man, and breaking the games record was really beautiful to see, because normally you don't get to see subcontinental countries come forward in track and field events, and we're seeing a lot of Indian sprinters come through, and so Arshad Nadeem was really, really good to see come through there. Okay, cricket now. The Momentum Proteas are home. The men's team, the Proteas to the UK. We're continuing the discussion. We started the discussion a little bit. They've won 4 in a row after losing that first one against England, where we thought, it's much of the same. But there were a couple of things that we were happy about. And I'll start with that, Tim. I was really happy with the style of cricket. You kind of saw that in the India series, they realized that they couldn't be playing the same cricket they played at the World Cup last year. That got them in trouble from a runs perspective going forward. They tried that whole Dwayne Pretorius pinch hitter against India 3. I'm happy they dropped that. And they brought some fresh faces. They brought some old faces into the side who put up their hands. And there's some worrying about other guys who are on off form. So we're going to be talking about that. But I was really happy with the identity of the batting. I didn't like this whole let's reassess at 15 overs thing. It just never made sense to me. In a world where there's 100 where guys need to go feel like they need to go from ball one, but you never need to go from ball one in any form of cricket. Even in T10, you don't need to do that. You give yourself time. But when the team sheet started in England, they saw the name. Many people saw the name Reza Hendricks. Everyone was like, Reza has Mark Boucher's nudes. Reza knows something that Mark Boucher doesn't. They threw the Q word around, which we use as our podcast name, the quota word, but we don't use it for people. And they were throwing all of those things around and everything else. But boy, did Reza shut them up. Boy, did he shut them up. Really impressive performances. Man of the series in the England series. Scored a lovely 74 against Ireland that first game. He followed up with a Reza Hendricks-esque, or previous Reza Mpho 42 or 40. But I was so happy for him. I kind of felt like last year was a lost year for him. Because after MSL 1, MSL 2, you kind of were like, okay, we know your strike rate's 136, but that's previous Reza. This new Reza was striking a lot higher in MSL, but it never came into the Proteas. Now it did. And how I'm very happy to see Reeza playing like this. I just don't know how he's going to make it to the World Cup. But Tim, what did you see?
Like, I'm going to have to make him humble pie. I'm going to have to make it for myself and eat it. I've been saying for a good 12 months that Reeza's got to go. We've got to move forward. We've got to go with a fresh outlook. We've got to go with somebody new. He's been out a long time. He's answered the critics. Reeza Hendricks answered the critics. Career strike rate of 128 against England, 156. There, just in a very basic statistical analysis, he answered the call. And if you watch the games, he went from the get-go. He did not build 12, 15 balls and then decide to go. The game plan was to get as many runs as they could in that power play. He was absolutely fantastic. And I agree. The batting was very impressive. So you had him with a strike rate 150. You had Riley strike rate 170. You had Tristan Stubbs striking over 200. So you had a far more progressive attacking game plan from South Africa from a batting point of view. So when people like Klaasen and Miller came on, there wasn't that pressure. They didn't score the numbers, but when they did come in, they scored at a quick rate, those guys, because there wasn't that extra pressure on them to have to bat 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 overs in the innings to try and get South Africa to a total. So it was hugely impressive. I think, apart from the first game, the fielding was a much improved performance in both the games. The fielding standards, both in the ground and in the air, was much improved, and it was crucial. It was. We often say catches win matches, and you looked at Maharaj's catches in those two games, absolutely outstanding. The Tristan Stubbs one of Moeen Ali, his one hand diving, fantastic. The issue for me, and I think when you look at the World Cup, they might get away with it.
Let's hold on the issues now. Let's talk about Reeza. We'll go into the batting and everything else, and all the other issues. Where does this put Timber?
I think this is a tricky one. I think, particularly when you've got Markham doing the business, Markham is scoring runs, and he's being a crucial role as a six option, it does become tricky. You could, Timber is going to be in that squad, no doubt about that. But you could find a situation early on in the game. You go, Timber, these guys are doing the business. These guys are in form, so we're not going to play you in this particular game. In a particular game, let's say, for example, it's a game against Australia, for example. You could find a situation like in that context, and I don't want people to get upset about that, because at the end of the day, we want to win the World Cup. We want to win the World Cup by picking the best 11, the guys that are firing. But it does create a lot of questions for the selectors as who they're going to open up at the top of that order. You can't say Reeza's not doing the business. You can't say that.
The other problem is Quinton's form.
It's 4 enough. But what you could do, you just made a good point. What you could do is you could say to Quinton, we're going to drop you, and you've got Klaasen. Klaasen takes the gloves. That could be an option. I don't think they'll go that way, because Quinton can win you a game from anywhere. That is one of his things. But you can't get away from the fact that Quinton's form. Quinton this year averages 9 with the bat. Okay. He's averaging 9 with the bat. and his strike rate just at 100. So he is really having a really tough time. I think that's 7 innings that he's played, which is a real, 7 innings, average of 9.57. That's a huge concern.
But here's the question, right? Going to the World Cup, if this form continues into the 100 and possibly out of it and into that India T20 series, do you still pick Quinton? Is Quinton still cemented as the one opener? Because I look at South Africa's question and I'm like, actually, 1, 2, and 3 are undecided. But you've got guys who are on form, who've been on the outer edges of the squad. For instance, Riley Rousseau, who I want you to talk about, but let's go there. He has played really well so far in this series, the opportunity that he was given. But then on top of that, there's the Rassie issue. What do you do with Rassie? Many people say Rassie bats slowly, but Rassie, when he was given the chance in this series, he also played pretty well. So effectively, you've got Rassie, you've got Riley, you've got Timber, you've got Quinny, and you've also got Reza fighting for essentially 1, 2, and 3. Some people are like Rassie and Riley. Riley can open, so he's like 4, but Rassie in himself is now finding himself in a situation where he can only probably bat at 3 for South Africa. I don't think he would want to open. But now his position is now being questioned after the fact that now the guys that have been given an opportunity are the ones who are actually playing well. But where do you see that Riley and Rassie thing actually going into the future?
I think it's Rassie to our backup. I think at this moment, if you're picking the 11 now, you're playing on next weekend, you're saying to Rassie, you're waiting in the wings. Your time will come, but you're not playing. I think you're going. You're trusting Quinton for that little bit longer. You're sticking with Reza because Reza's incredible form, and you're sticking with Riley. I think you're going with that 3. If you're going at the moment, it is a bit tough, but it's a good position for the South African squad to be in. They are all fighting for positions. You can only pick so many players. I think it's a good position to be in. Obviously, Rassie will want to be playing, but I think if you're picking your top 3 now, that's the top 3 I'm going with.
But does that weigh in any way in going into the India series? Because many people on social media assume that Timber comes back in regardless of what Reza has done, right? But does Timber's captaincy give him that right to walk back in, even though he was injured, and had it not been for the injury, wouldn't have seen Reza?
Yeah, that's. I will go back to the captaincy that we had in the England series. I thought the captaincy was excellent. No time did I thought, Timber's being missed here. Now, that's not a disservice on him. That's just on the performance of the South African team, particularly in those last 2 games. That's just a consequence of how well they played on the important passages where the game was in the balance. So you could argue, you could make an argument to say, as good as Reza's done, Reza, you knew pretty much that Timber was going to play if he was fit, and you were going to be the stand-in. You could do that. I wouldn't. Reza is in such good form, such a purple patch. I'm sticking with Reza.
So that means a conversation then needs to be had, director of cricket and coach with Timber, and speaking of his white ball format, and say that, look, you're still going to be ODI captain because your ODI form is still great, but from a T20 perspective, maybe it is time for you to step down. Going to a World Cup, it's not new, but I just don't know how that changes the balance of the side. I know Timber's a really great guy. And so I think even if you had him as a squad member, as you say, with like a co-captain role with Kesh, that could kind of enable guys to be able to hand over the reins and everyone to be able to get a fair opportunity. Because I think what a guy like Reza wants is a fair shot. And yes, he has received a fair shot prior to 2019. Don't get me wrong. Do not get me wrong. But in that final couple of games in the Momentum One Day Cup, that earned him a right into the Proteas side. They went to Zimbabwe. He demolished them with Heino Klaasen. They got themselves back into the side. And now Reza's fighting for his life. And that's what we want. We want to give people second chances. And so he's taken a second chance and he's run with it. And so I think maybe that's going to require a lot of conversations, adult conversations around this. Because I remember I sat on this podcast, many other podcasts, and said, it's a problem that you are creating doing this, knowing that that Temba necessarily hadn't cemented his place as a white ball cricketer. And his form has dipped, and we need to acknowledge that it's a dip in form. It's not an inability to play the format of the game. It's just that how do you do that when you have a captain who's lost form, but you still want him in? It's the same question Australia had with Steve Smith. They persisted with Steve Smith, assuming that he was going to get back right. And somehow, somewhere, he managed to get through that World Cup, not actually even scoring runs, but he made it till the end. Even though he wasn't captain, it was very important to the side. So it's things like that you need to consider, and it's a trade-off. And so if the selectors want Reza, conversation needs to happen. If the selectors are saying, we want you hot, but you want you hot as a backup, then fine. We've got a hot backup. And so that's how it's going to work. Riley, on the other hand, for me, I think Riley needs to be given a little bit of a run in the side. Rassie's done nothing wrong. But I do think from a form question, Rassie might just lose out a little bit. And everyone's asking for Riley, and I get it. But I do think you need to give Riley a few more games to see if it's a flash in the pan or if it's a real thing. And chances are, and I know you, Tim, would be dying on this, you'd put money on Riley being a real thing. And then the question is, what type of player do you want at 3? Do you want an anchor type of like Rassie who will catch up at the end and it's a risk up front? Or do you want a guy like Riley who'll go guns blazing up front, but it's a risk back in the back end? Because if Riley loses his wicket early, you find yourself in trouble. But that trouble's no longer there because Aiden's on form, which is great for the Proteas. David Miller's on form. And then the guy I want to talk about is Tristan Stubbs. Because I think Tristan Stubbs has now effectively shut out the Heino Klaasen noise. There's no way on God's green earth, outside of an injury, should we see a South African cricketing T20 11 with Heino Klaasen in there if there is no injury. He's come in, he's given South Africa that extra. So effectively, remember Miller time? Now you've got Miller and Stubbs time. But Miller time is like maximum 200 strike rate. Stubbs time is 200 plus. It's like I'm watching a Porsche and then a Ferrari F1 racing car batting. And then on top of that, you've got Markram who can bat at that high level as well. So you've got 3 guys for effectively the final 10 overs of the match. If they don't lose their wickets early, you're in with a shot at scoring a whole lot of runs. And you saw that in the Ireland series. You saw that in the England series, that they can do that. And I like that 3 coming in around about over 8 going forward. Tristan Stubbs maybe over 12 down to try and give you, because Tristan only needs 30 balls. And I would be like, if Tristan's there, and I know David Miller's there or Aiden's there, I'm like, sorry, Oaks, get this guy the ball as much as you can. So for me, I'm excited because it gives us that little bit of an X factor. That X factor that kind of makes teams scared of us. Because now, even though South Africa's lost 3 wickets, you've got guys in there who can still give you something, even though we'll get bowled out. So even if we get bowled out, your minimum will still stay at the 160 that Mark Butchers couldn't seem to get over last year. But if it works, you're at 200 on any surface, in any ground, because those 3 can clear it. And so I'm loving that. And so I'm really happy that Tristan got that opportunity, but I don't know how you see Tristan's involvement in the side.
Tristan's in the 11. If I'm making an 11, Tristan's the first name I put down. Tristan's the first name I put down because of his his ability to be that X factor player, to really turn a game on its head from ball one. He does not need. There are times when that's why Miller gets criticised. I don't always agree with it. Sometimes he does turn up 10, 11, 12 balls, and then people get irritated. Tristan doesn't need that. Tristan will go big from ball one. If it's there to hit, he'll hit it through the line, over the top. He doesn't believe in getting himself in. And there are going to come times when he's going to score 4 with 1 ball and get out. There are going to come times like that. But there are times when he's going to do what he did in the series, where he's going to make 60 or 40, and he's going to blow the team away. So for me, South Africa have been desperately needing an X-Factor player. Desperately. Since A.B. de Villiers' retirement. Let's be honest, since A.B. de Villiers' retirement, we've been needing that X-Factor player who can really turn a game on its head from the get-go.
Yes, and if you think about that one England game where it was him and Reza at the back end, and we'd lost all these wickets all around Reza, and he came in and South Africa were in trouble in like the 12th over, and he took the score to 190. Even though we lost, it was the first game. Even though we lost, it kind of gave. I hope everyone got the sense of we're never out of any games anymore. We cannot be out of any games anymore if this guy's still in the hat. And so the question is, how does Mark, Timber, and Kesh manufacture the batting lineup to make sure that there is no game that goes by that Tristan faces less than 10 balls? It cannot happen. If you lose a game and Tristan's gotten less than 10 balls, you messed it up with the batting lineup. You need to find a way to get Tristan in, even if it's you get to over 15 and somebody retires hurt and walks out. Tristan needs to walk back in. You need to give Tristan enough balls to kind of win you the game. And it now goes into the strategy and the tactics of what those guys are doing. And I understand you like, okay, I've got the hot hand, but you also need to give Tristan a chance. And so for me, it's always about throwing the Tristan dice every game, because if it comes off, it will. If it doesn't come off, fine. You'll figure it out and you've got time to figure that out from a batting perspective. But you need to make sure that there's no game that you lose where Tristan hasn't batted at least 10 balls.
Yeah. He's already been brought up. He's already been brought up in the order in one game. They brought him in at 5 because they needed that extra impetus. So you would hope to think that they already see that they can't be pigeonholed and he must bat 6 and that's where he must bat and he must mature into his game. He doesn't need to mature into his game. He knows exactly where he is in this format. He knows exactly what his strengths are and where to put the ball. He knows his game better than a lot of people at his age that are playing cricket at a professional level. He's much beyond his age from a cricketing T20 point of view. He's a very, very mature individual.
And I'm really happy about that. And I think for me, that's the one thing that I'm excited about when it comes to Tristan Stubbs is that it kind of gives us that game changer, that A.B. de Villiers guy. And I hope the world doesn't take him as A.B. de Villiers, because A.B. de Villiers is on his own. He's in a world of his own. But like someone said, no, he gives him Dewald Brevis vibes. Dewald Brevis is not Tristan Stubbs. Dewald Brevis is a year younger than Tristan Stubbs, or 2. But Tristan Stubbs is doing incredible things. And for me, Tristan, and this is the one difference between Tristan and Dewald, right? Is that Tristan did it against his peers at domestic cricket. He blew guys away. Dewald is yet to do that. The moment Dewald does that, he walks into the side. But he shouldn't walk into the side before then. Because in as much as we like to eye talent, and we know Dewald is talented, Tristan has proven it. It's a proven case that was taken from domestic, put in, and it's working. That's how you should do it. And well done to the selectors for doing it like that. One of the other things is that the other things that was good. I loved Ngidi. Oh, man, Lungi Ngidi is bowling really, really well. He's looking very fit. He's looking really good. To a point where I wouldn't even exclude. Everyone talks about excluding him from the test side because Lungi is always the first guy to be dropped from the side. I think Lungi is him and Kagiso are the first name on my sheet. The guy I'm actually worried about is Nokia, but that's fine. I'll live with that. And then obviously, I'm happy that we're now going with 2 spin bowlers. I hope it doesn't change when you go to Australia. But this thing of to brace this, to brace that, it must end. Shamsi stays on the side, regardless of whether he gets tonked, regardless of whether if he gets tonked for an entire year, then you can take him out. But in the absence of any other leg spinning option in South Africa, because we don't want to take Imran Tahir, and you definitely don't want to take Sean van Berg, you're gonna sit with Tabrez Shamsi. I'm not saying Sean van Berg is bad. It's just that the selectors have never looked to him.
I know what you mean. Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
and because we've chosen Keshav as this wily 3-format spinner, you cannot even try other guys like a Senran Muchisam who can give you something with the bat. I'd like to try Simon Harmer in this format. I think he could do well, especially on our pitches, with the wealth of experience he's had. I know in the UK it hasn't worked out, but that's fine. Other guys are George Linder. George Linder, all of a sudden now, there's no way into the side, you know. So for me, because we've gone this path, you're gonna have to go this path with Shamsi. You need someone who can take you wickets, who can get you wickets. Keshav is great, but Keshav's great for the one thing South Africans love, and that's saving runs. They don't like taking wickets. They love saving runs. That's the whole thing about South Africans. We just like, no, economy rate. Shamsi takes wickets. And to quote Simi Aref, our former commentator and friend of ours, Shamsi takes wickets wherever he goes. And Ireland found out really quickly that he can do that. I think he just needs help. I think he needs somebody in the team, a spin bowling consultant who he can talk to. I think it's high time that we have somebody in that department, not just a fast bowler, but somebody who can give him guidance every game, give him another eye. I especially with Kesh as well, just to give them, you know, something. I know Rangana Herath has worked with a couple of teams around the world. You need someone like that who can be like, no, draw your lens, move them forward. Maybe even get Paul Adams. Okay, I don't think that's going to happen, but because Paul Adams ran the spin camp like last month. So it's things like that. Someone he can call and talk to before a game, in game as well, to kind of be like, okay, drop your length, move it forward. This is the type of surface. This is what we need, just to give him. So we don't spend time with Shamsi trying to figure out what he needs to bowl, you know, because there are a lot of wasted balls in that, and those balls are boundary balls, and you want to cut that. But outside of that, he takes wickets. You need a person who can turn it the opposite way, and Shamsi gives right-handers a problem, even though it goes across them, and he gives left-handers a problem because it's opposite of what they want. So I think Shamsi always needs to be there. What do you say about our bowling, Tim? And then we'll talk about our issues.
Bowling, Plunky Giri, just a breath of fresh air to see him back, free of injury. Just as you said, I would say our best bowler in that series, and I would say by some distance, the most consistent performer. And I would say it's really good to see him back into the fold and bowling with pace, not bowling within himself, trusting that he is 100% fit. And there have been times, it's been the last couple of years, when I thought, well, he's going to the paces. He's only bowling at 80%. You can see he's holding back. He wasn't holding back at any time through the series. So that's a huge bonus for South Africa. I can't really offer anything in terms of the spin bowlers. I agree entirely. I don't care if Shamsi goes for 40 and 4 overs in every single T20 game. Don't care. As long as he gets 2 or 3 wickets in those 4 overs, I don't care. It doesn't matter. He gets 2 or 3 wickets, I'm absolutely more than happy. I really don't care. So that's a no-brainer. I freely admit that I probably wouldn't have picked Maharaj the T20s a year ago when he was picked. I thought that Linda should have been given a longer run, but we are where we are. And Maharaj has been excellent when he's come in. He's done exactly what South Africa have wanted. He has been incredibly economical, getting important wickets, not being the big, massive wicket taker, but getting important wickets, holding things up at one end while the other bowlers take wickets. I have the same problems with you. I've got problems with Anrik.
That guy's gonna break down on us at Lords. I just have a feeling. I just have a feeling that he's gonna pull up.
Well, yeah. Let's just look. I said a couple of weeks ago, didn't I? I said overs will do him good. I don't know if I have done him good. I don't know if Nits will do him good. I don't know if tomorrow's game against England will do him good.
He needs to bowl a lot in tomorrow's game.
You know, I know he's gonna bowl, but I don't know if his game just doesn't look. It just looks weird. It just looks something's missing. And Olafir must be rubbing his hands in glee. Look, nobody wants that to happen. But Olafir must be thinking,
what about
I'm gonna play. I'm gonna play the test match. Yay! No, I hope he comes back because I let him. Again, he's had injury problems recently, and he's come back from a very mysterious injury. And the team is better when he is doing well. When he is performing, South Africa does well. So we want him back to his best.
So
the fact is not
from a bowling perspective, right? Is KG Anuk Lungi best bowling attack in the world across all formats if they're all fit. Take them out. Add Marco Jansen, step below. Add Duan Olfi, step below. Add somebody else in there, it's a step below. And that step below is the difference between a team being able to score 190 in a T20 and 170 and 60. And it's just that. And so, or even in a test match to be able to blow teams away. I think if Anuk played against India, we would have wrapped it up a lot earlier. Sorry, Indian community, but you can blame Supersport all you want. They were on fire. And we mustn't forget that Lungi spell against Virat Kohli in Cape Town. That turned the entire series. That was just unbelievable bowling when he took 3 for 12. It was insane. And Lungi is just building on that. I just don't get how he doesn't get game time in the IPL. Man's lost a lot of weight. Man's bowling like he's never bowled before. And he deserves even a contract at the 100 would have been great to just be like, wait, dude, we recognize. And I think Lungi is one of the most underrated, disrespected people, and he's done nothing to earn that disrespect at all. But let's go to our problems. Bowlers 3, 4, and 5. No, we've got 1 and 2 the spinners. You've got KG and Lungi, or KG and Anna. That's your 4 bowlers. Number 5 is going to be your all-rounder, i.e. being Petluguayo, Duan Pretorius, or Aiden Markham. But I think everyone likes Aiden as a 6, so we're going to leave Aiden. But it's that 5th bowler. It's that all-rounder. That number 7. What are we doing in that spot? We've tried Dwayne. I still like what? Okay, let's say this. What are you looking for, Tim, in that number 7 spot? Do you want a guy who can bowl you 4 overs with no damage, but can sporadically win you games if you need to score 20 of 10 or at 2 runs a ball? Or are you looking for somebody who can actually bat and it doesn't matter how many runs he concedes because him and Aiden will share?
Bowler. He's got to be able to bowl. He's got to be able to bowl and get wickets. Again, my thinking is similar to around Shamsi. I don't mind if he goes for 9.5 for 10 and over. I don't mind. I don't want him to go for that many, but essentially it's got to be a bowler. And I think it's going to work in their favour. The bigger field in Australia, it's going to work in Pitlaquire and Pretorius' favour. But I genuinely think it was showed up in that Ireland series, particularly in that first game. I think Parnell has to be that guy. That X-factor bowler, adds something different, left arm, can bat, doesn't, but there's nothing wrong with his batting. I don't think he's going to lose anything from his batting that Pitlaquire and Pretorius are not giving. And he delivered in that Ireland series when he did play.
I think it kind of answered the question that Mark and everybody else in the selectors would have had is who's our number 7, and step up Wayne Parnell. Wayne can open the batting for you. Wayne can open the bowling for you. Wayne can bowl at the death for you. Wayne can bowl in the middle for you. Wayne can bat anywhere up and down the order for you should you need him to. And we know he has that ability to score runs that are needed for you. He is, for me, one of the best IPL discovered all-rounders in the world. Don't know why he's not in an IPL side. He is that good. Tells you a lot about the IPL scouting, because like I look at some of the guys and I'm like, that's the guy you need. We know in T20 cricket you need all-rounders, right? You need all-rounders. Wayne is that all-rounder. Just don't know why nobody likes him or nobody wants to pick him. I'd like to see in that India series, especially with Australia, because it's a triangular series, Wayne getting an opportunity at 7. I know Andile's taken wickets for the Proteas, and I get that. But if you can get the same production from a bowling perspective as Andile, as well as much better production with the bat, it's a no-brainer. And so to me, I'm even considering saying we maybe need to look at Andile as a bowler. So for instance, if either Lungi or KG aren't available and Anrich is not up to scratch, maybe Andile comes in and around, because Andile's got a little bit of a much better skill set than Anrich. The only problem is I want someone who can give me 150 at the drop of a hat. And that's where Anrich kind of pips it. But there's an option to say my 4th seamer going to the World Cup is Andile. Because we're going to take the 3, the 4th one will be Andile, and you have your 2 spinners with Aiden, that's your 3 spinners, and then the rest are batters with Wayne Parnell added onto that. Or take 7 batsmen plus Wayne as the 8th bowler, and that's it. You take 7, 8, and you've got wicket keepers all around. I'm assuming Heinrich is going to be the 7th batter. I don't know how that's going to look weird, because you've got the 3, and then you'll have the 5 we're fighting for. So they need to figure it out. Something's going to... So Andile actually might not even make the World Cup. It might just be a question of who do you take between Andile and Anrich going to the World Cup, actually, if Wayne's taken that opportunity. So a lot of stuff needs to happen. Do you have any other things that bothered you from an issues perspective with this T20 side?
That first game against England, that fielding, we did discuss it last week when we were on. That fielding was really, really poor. As good as it was for those last 2 games, as good as it improved, that fielding, if that pops up at a semi-final, we're losing. It doesn't matter what we score. We are losing. You cannot drop 5 drop catches in a T20 game, 3 of which are one person. You can't drop those sorts of catches. You can't. I would say 4 of them had to be taken. I mean, had to be. I consider 1 was maybe not that easy. So, in the back of my mind, we've seen that creep in a little bit over the last year, where there's been the odd game where it's not just been a little bit. It's not dropped, 2%. It's dropped 20%. The fielding's gone from 100% to 60. It's dropped dramatically. That is a performance that I don't recognize for a South African team at all. I just don't recognize it. So you don't want that to return in any way, shape, or form. So that is obviously hype. And then of course Quinton. I said at the beginning, I want to give him, an extra game or 2.
As much rope to have himself.
I am. It's my word. It's horrible where it is at the moment. It's averaging 9 this year. I mean,
look, it's not good, and I think everyone's going to be holding on to hope that it turns, but we're going to have these questions going into the World Cup if it continues. Hopefully, you just need 1 big innings to kind of remind everybody of how good he is. And what he brings, but obviously because he's the wicketkeeper, I'd rather have Quinton than have Heinrich Klaasen. It's a fact. Makes my balance off, makes everything off. Like, I like Hano has a batter. Guys, no. It just makes the batting order look off, especially now when you're discovering Riley and Reza and everything else. Now, where does Hano fit into the Aiden, Miller, Stubbs? I don't want to see Hano Klassen getting involved in there. So that's my...
Plus, you get the left combination at the top three. Left, right, left. Left, right. That's also...
right now.
That's hugely important.
The Padres are doing that, actually. They're going left, right, in their starting 8 in the MLB. Don't ask me how I know this, but I know this. So, and it confuses pitchers. So, kind of makes sense because it gives you an opportunity to be able to, for someone to tee off against someone who struggles. So, for instance, if you bring an off spinner, the left-hander is going to be great. But if you bring a leg spinner, the right-hander might struggle, but the left-hander might win. If you bring in a left-arm wrist spinner, right-hander might win, and it just makes everything work, But that's us. Look, Tim, I think I was happy with that. I'd actually give that. What would you rate that entire performance? I'd give it an 8 out of 10. Yes, obviously the first game was horrible, but it was fielding things. But we fought back with the bat, and I think for me, that said a lot more about this team. So I'm hovering around 8 out of 10 if I had to rank those two T20 series. I just hope the momentum carries over into the Test whites. So this match against the England Lions at the county ground, that's an opportunity to see the style of cricket England are going to play. They're not going to be playing conservative cricket, and then you're going to see baseball. So I think for me this week is really important for the Proteas, getting Anuk up to speed, getting Kagiso up to speed. Lungi looks fit, ready, and raring to go, but getting all the other non-white ball guys up to speed, Keegan Peterson, Dwan Olivier, Simon Harmer, getting them in and seeing how it goes. And the only question I have for you, Tim, and we'll probably answer it next week when we do our little preview show, is how are we going to figure out a way with the conservative nature of South African cricket to have 2 spinners in the side like you want? We've done that in T20s and it seems to work. But can we do that coming the Test series? I hope that happens in the England Lions match and we can see how that's going to work. But yeah, Tim, it's been a great series. Any final words, and then we can let people know when they can find us?
Just to let you know that obviously the game is tomorrow against the England A side. If you follow me, I will obviously tweet out the links for the live stream. I'm sure there'll be a live stream for the game if you do want to see how we do. And it'll particularly be very interesting. That England A side, again, it seems to be a common thread for the England at the moment. Very strong on the batting. I mean, really, really strong. So it'll be very interesting to see how we go in terms of our bowlers. Their bowling is a little bit weak for me. Not that they don't have bowlers, but I'd be surprised if we struggled against their bowlers. I'd be a little bit disappointed if I'm honest. I don't want to be eating Mpho pie next week and their bowlers out for nothing. But their batting is strong. Their bowling is not strong at all. So it'll be very, very interesting. Other than that, no, that's just about it from me.
Okay, cool. We've got so many questions to ask about our Test team. We'll talk about it next week, just before the Lord's Test. That starts on the 17th. So please do watch out for that. We'll be back talking about that, previewing that Test series. So many questions with our Timber in there. It adds a lot more dimension to a very brittle-looking-ish middle order with the return of we might even see a return of Aiden Markram in the middle order because of what's going on in and around that camp. But outside of that, Tim, thank you very much. Thank you very much to everyone for joining. And remember, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel and also support us at One World SR on Twitter, as well as our YouTube channel. Tim, outside of that, goodbye, good night, and lesale kakagiso.